Hi, welcome to Couch Conversations. My name is Rani, and this week we have Linu and Nikki joining us from We Are Chai. Welcome to Couch Conversations, Nikkita and Linu. It's great to have you both on the show with us. I just wanted to say that I'm excited for you guys to share your testimony, and it's really wonderful to hear both of your journeys prior to obviously this recording. So Nikkita, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you've been doing this week in lockdown.
So yeah, I'm Nikkita, the co-founder of We Are Chai, and I live in London. So I've been in London my whole life, grew up there, so haven't really left. I'm a city girl. And yeah, this week I've been at work, so I'm back in the office. So working from home life has now ceased.
What do you do, Nikkita?
So I'm a youth and children's minister in a church in London, in West London. And yeah, it's a joy to bring the good news to the young kids and to the teenagers. So it's been a joy of mine.
And we were just talking about the Bible Project, weren't we? We were just saying like it's been something useful to you, and we'd highly recommend it to anyone watching this channel. The Bible Project is a really good way to kind of get to know the Bible in a more, I'd say a kind of condensed version, and it's just easy and bite-sized.
Yeah, and it's just a different learning style. So
and have really you found it helpful?
I have, I personally found it helpful. I remember taking my youth group through it. They found it helpful, and I think it helps with the video. It helps with like the action. It helps with all the different changes, and the voiceover really helps. You can pause it, you can come back to it. So it's a really good resource for sure.
Brilliant. So tell us what God has been doing in your life. Is there a particular testimony that you want to share to encourage and inspire other people?
Yeah, I think, testimonies are so powerful, starting with your own. God does a work in us first, and then we really get to be a blessing when we share that out to other people. So just starting with my own testimony, I grew up in church my whole entire life. Got baptized when I was a baby, confirmed when I was about 14, and then at 16, just as I finished my GCSEs, my grandfather, my papa, was diagnosed with cancer. And I remember my world kind of shifted, the view of the world kind of shifted, and everything kind of went silent. The world around me kept going, but my world just became very silent and still. And it was 3 months of ups and downs, hopes and joys, and a lot of grief, a lot of pain. And then on September 14th, 2009, he passed away. But on the 13th of September 2009, I remember sitting in my bed, and in my 16-year-old self, I said to God, I was like, okay, I promise you I will be better, do better, move better, do all these other things, thinking that I had to do in order for God to also do. Yeah. And that's just not the way it works. But in my 16-year-old self, that's honestly what I thought. It's like, okay, well, I'll just do better, and then you save him, and I'll make sure it's all good on me. And then anyway, the next morning he died, and if I'm honest, like I'll just speak out for what my 16-year-old self thought. But
yeah, absolutely.
It was definitely to hell with God then. Like, how can a God that heard me, if they say, and I think it was that thing of when I've gone to confirmation classes, they say God hears you, he listens when you speak to him, all this stuff. And well, I was speaking to him and he didn't do what I asked him to do, so yeah. How does he exist? How is he even real? And so I think that was the beginning of a 4-year journey of walking away from church, saying God isn't real. I mean, if people ask me what you believe, if I was a Christian or not, I'd be like, yeah, kind of, I'm a Christian, and kind of just didn't want to speak about religion, didn't want to speak about God. It just wasn't my thing. And I lived in that 4 years doing what I wanted, not necessarily always being the nicest person or the nicest version of myself. definitely had a chip on my shoulder. I think it was unprocessed grief.
Yeah.
But it was definitely like angry, just a little bit like snappy, very sharp tongued. The spirit definitely did a work in me there.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, those 4 years were really hard. I'd lost probably a monumental figure in my life. And it was just, I didn't know how to cope. It was very difficult. Fast forward to when I was about 20, my mum faithfully had continued been going to church. She is incredible, but she faithfully continued going, and she had a Caribbean evening and she was cooking and there was an event, and she begged us to come. Me and my brother is the us. And she said, please come along. And I literally said to my brother, I'm not going if you're not going. And the only reason why I am going is to support my mum because I love my mum. And we went, and then there was like this raffle drawing, and I remember my brother won the hamper, and I thought, of course you won the hamper. Like, of course you had to go and win the hamper. Of course it was you. And I just wanted this to be an easy in and out because, you know, we knew the people in the church. We'd grown up with them. And so he won, and then we were like, well, I said to him, well, we're going to have to show our face the next day. And so we showed our face. And then from there, I just kept coming back. Even when people were like, oh, you're going to come back next week? I'm like, yeah, I'll be back. With a little bit of a chip on my shoulder.
You're like, I will go to church. I will prove myself and I'll go.
I will come back. And and to be honest, like I haven't missed a Sunday since. So it's been an incredible journey. And from there, going back to church, God just lined me up with people who intentionally walked beside me. And from that, what happened is that we got to the place where I gave my life back to Jesus. It's a monumental moment. I came back to him and it was incredible. I think, you know, there's so much more to say, but I think the biggest thing I've learned from my testimony and the two takeaways that I'll share is that my granddad was always going to die on September 14th, 2009. No matter what the situation was, it was part of God's plan. And so I had to really make peace with that and sit with that and be like, okay, that's fine. I'm grateful for the time I did get, because God was intentional about the time I did get. And the second thing is, God restores. He restores in such an incredible way. And he gave me the life verse, Isaiah 61 verses 1-3, and specifically that beauty for ashes. Like, I will restore everything you've lost and it will be beautiful. And sometimes in our testimonies, I'm not at the whole full restoration of my picture just yet, but I've seen glimpses of it, and it's incredible. So that's
amazing. I think what's really important to remember as well, that there's a verse in the Bible, and I can't remember it off by heart, but it's about God will complete his good works in you. You know, and it's not a case of I think I was listening to a sermon the other day, and it said, you know, it's not like a magic wand, you know, bam, saved, and I'm transformed and I'm completely whole and I'm completely new. Everything I felt is gone, and, you know, like I live in a joyful world. I think many of the things that we forget as Christians is that, you know, Christ suffered and we will suffer too. You know, part of our Christian journey is that we will suffer, but not without God. We're not going to do it without God. So we have that comfort, don't we, in that, and that we have that, you know, the Lord is our shepherd, he is our staff and our rod, you know, he's with us. So, you know, I think that's such an incredible testimony, you know, and I thank you for being honest. I know that I don't normally like to use the H word, but I know that you were just really honest about, as a 16-year-old, how you felt. And I know that feeling. I think when we spoke, I mentioned that when my mum was on her deathbed, she was, you know, last 2 weeks in hospital, I remember going to the chapel and praying to every stained glass window. You know, I came from a Hindu background, so for me, I was like, I'm just going to go and pray to every stained glass window with Jesus in it, and, you know, hope that God will save my mum. And when he didn't, I did the same thing as you. I was like, well, what kind of God would, you know, take away my mum from a 16-year-old, a 5-year-old, and, you know, young kids? But actually, you know, God was still faithful, because my dental hygienist was a Christian, and she became my alpha leader many years later.
Wow.
And you know, when you just think about the pieces of the puzzle that God had put together, like he's always been there, like he's never left our side, and we have to hold on to that. And I think the other thing I want to ask you, Nikkita, is obviously about your cultural background. So tell me a little bit about, you know, growing up in a Caribbean family, and you're British Caribbean because you were born here. But what does that look like, you know, culturally? So the kind of food you eat, you know, is there taboos? You know, even being a Christian, is there taboo from a cultural perspective, do you think, still around, you know, mental health, around, you know, walking away from church and things like that? Like, how have you dealt with, you know, the cultural aspect of being a Christian?
So I come from, I like to call it a blended Caribbean household because my parents' islands are very different. So my mom's Jamaican and my dad's Grenadian. And to the outside world, that might not mean a thing, but the music is different. The food choices are a little bit different. And so the way they say things are different. So I grew up calling one thing, you know, I'd go to Grenada and be like, hey, do you have any skin up? And they'll be like, what? Like, or I'd go to Jamaica and be like, it's an incredible piece of fruit, but it's this fruit that you like break it and then you like suck on it till you like get to the seed. But it's called, I think in Grenada it's called a skin up, and in Jamaica it's called a guinness. So I would walk around so confused, being like, which one do I would be like, Mom, what is it for you? Because then that way, you know, I'll know what to say. But yeah, I love coming from the West Indies. It's a joy for me. But in terms of our food, plantain, dumplings, jerk chicken, all that kind of stuff, rice and peas. But our taboos, I think as a Black community, we're getting better. There's progression around mental health. I don't think it looked like that for my parents. And so I can see that for me, there's been progression. I don't necessarily think we're where we need to be. Just because I think sometimes we just have that mentality of we have to just still get up and go. But mental health is important. It's real. I think that's the key thing. It's real. It's not this fake thing, or, you know, it doesn't make you weak either. It doesn't make you weak. And I think that's something, as in our Black community, we take pride in our strength because we are strong. But also that doesn't mean if there's a mental health issue that we're still not strong. We are strong, you know, because actually to get up and fight every day means you are strong.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that's really important to remember. So the taboos are there for sure, and I think, but it's about educating that generation, you know, and having those dialogues.
Absolutely. I think the thing to remember as well, it's not just, you know, in the Black community, it's across every culture. And actually, I think it's a generational thing as well. I think, you know, I'm slightly older than you guys. So from my generation to your generation, you know, there is a massive step up for understanding mental health, for understanding and actually healing. So, you know, our grandparents' generation, you know, they went through world wars, they went through stuff, they didn't have time to think about life, they were trying to survive, you know what I mean? And, you know, when we complain about the pandemic, I get it, I really do understand, but we're still in a much better place. We haven't got bombs dropping on us, we're not, you know, without food. We are, most of us are blessed to have shelter and food and be in a good place. But absolutely, I think it's a generational thing. You've got the grandparents' generation, then you've got our parents' generation, and it was a little bit better, but it was still quite a taboo. And then you've gone to, like, you know, bam, the next lot, and everyone's like, right, we need to talk about this stuff. We can't hide it anymore. And it's important. I think, particularly in a church environment, you know, God is with us. But I've read the word depression in the Bible. You know, even God lamented, even Jesus lamented, you know, saying, why have you forsaken me? Like, you know, there is this. We have to appreciate that we all go through pain. God knows we go through pain. You know, we live in a fallen world. But absolutely, I think, you know, today being World Mental Health Day, we have to continue those conversations. We have to continue, you know, what we're doing, and we have to continue the good work that you know, and talking about stuff. That's the key thing, communication. Like, let's keep talking about stuff.
100%.
Thank you, Nikkita. We're going to carry on
You're
after
welcome.
about chai.